Joe Biden's pardons could backfire. That's right, everyone who Joe pardoned, from his son Hunter to the January 6th committee to Dr. Fauci to General Milley, all of them could face legal consequences. Specifically, they could all lose their Fifth Amendment rights, which could be devastating for them in the years to come. But before I get into all of that, I want to flash backwards in time to 1915 because the United States Supreme Court has actually weighed in on pardons, and in a ruling, they wrote that accepting a pardon is actually an admission of guilt. Now, the reason I use the word admission in quotation marks is because it's not a legally binding admission, but they are on the record stating that it is an implication, an implicit admission of guilt. So, in Burdick versus the United States, 1915, there are substantial differences between legislative immunity and a pardon. The latter, a pardon, carries an imputation, or in other words, an implication of guilt and an acceptance of a confession of it, while the former is non-committal and tantamount to silence of the witness. So this case had three legal findings. Number one, a pardon must be accepted to be effective. Number two, a pardon carries an implicit admission of guilt, which we just went through right there. And number three, self-incrimination protections, or in other words, your Fifth Amendment rights, remain valid even with a pardon offer. But they disappear. Your Fifth Amendment rights disappear if you accept the pardon. So I'm going to get into that later on. But of course, none of this is new. It's all well known, especially in Washington, D.C. In fact, it's so well known that Adam Kinzinger, who, by the way, Joe Biden pardoned, is on the record saying that he didn't want a pardon because it would imply that he's guilty. You can't make this stuff up.
Biden issue pardons for the January 6th committee members, including yourself?
No, I don't want it. Look, here's the
You
thing.
don't want it?
No, because the second a pardon is issued, and look, I understand the theory behind it, because Donald Trump has clearly said he's going to go after everybody. And it's not going to be for the January 6th investigation. What they'll do is they'll weaponize other investigations. They'll look into everything and start an investigation that'll end up coming to naught, force people to pay money. This happened to Brad Raffensperger in Georgia as he was forced to defend himself. But the second you take a pardon, it looks like you're guilty of something. I'm guilty of nothing besides bringing the truth to the American people and in the process embarrassing Donald Trump, because for 187 minutes he sat there and did absolutely nothing and showed how weak and scared he truly was. So no, I don't want it. And, you know, the bottom line is, I mean, if he wants to bring up January 6th again, we've had all this talk about how we're moving on from January 6th, and trust me, Anderson, I would love to. Like, my life has been defined by this for 4 years. But if he wants to bring it back, I will be happily talking about everything the committee did and learned and re-embarrassed.
What some people may not realize is you're saying you don't want a pardon. Fighting whatever might come your way can cost you and your family, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, you think about it, like, and this happened with...
Okay, so two things there. Number one, time will tell if Adam Kinzinger will put his money where his mouth is. Because, like I said earlier, you have to accept a pardon in order for it to be valid. So we'll see if Adam Kinzinger actually turns down the pardon that he received from Joe Biden, or whether he accepts it and proves himself to be a hypocrite. Time will tell. Point number two, there's this idea that Trump is going to go on a revenge and retribution tour. We've all lived through Trump 1.0, and I seem to recall, what was it? Chance of lock her up during his rallies. There were credible, if not likely, accusations of corruption in regards to Hillary Clinton. Not just Hillary, but the entire Clinton enterprise. Nothing ever happened there. There was no DOJ investigation. There was no witch hunt. Hillary Clinton's life right now, other than her being miserable, is normal. Like, her life isn't hell. Donald Trump didn't run her into the ground. She's not locked up behind bars. So this idea that Joe is going to pardon everyone just to protect them from retribution is just absolutely ridiculous. And then you combine that with the fact that accepting a pardon is an implicit admission of guilt. Again, just not a good look. In fact, even Joe Biden is on the record saying that he wouldn't pardon himself because he did nothing wrong.
Also, sir, on pardons, have you ruled out a pardon for yourself or any other additional members of the family?
For myself?
Yes, sir.
What would I pardon myself for?
That's what I'm asking.
No, I have no contemplation of pardoning myself for anything. I didn't do anything wrong.
Mr. President, would you comment on...
He said he wouldn't pardon himself for anything because he didn't do anything wrong. So why pardon J6 committee? Why pardon Anthony Fauci? Why pardon his family? Like, hello? So the question remains, are they going to accept these pardons? And if they accept the pardon, it could turn into a nightmare. Specifically, they would lose their right against self-incrimination. So according to Newsweek, Joe Biden pardons give allies potential Fifth Amendment headache. So let's just say, for example, hypothetically, Liz Cheney accepts the pardon. Well, let's say there's not an investigation into her directly, but let's say Trump decides, hey, I want to investigate January 6th, and I also want to investigate the aftermath. And let's say that Liz is called in to testify, she's subpoenaed. Well, if that's the case, in this situation, she would not be able to plead the Fifth because there would be no threat of incrimination, a law professor told Newsweek. On top of that, if she lied under oath or misrepresented anything, or any stumble, she would be in trouble for that, for lying to Congress, because a pardon isn't lifelong. A pardon doesn't cover everything. A pardon is very specific. It is limited to the scope of the pardon, and you can't pardon people for offenses that they haven't yet committed. So if she said something wrong under oath, oops. And by the way, if she accepts the pardon, she can't plead the Fifth. So that is very dangerous waters for her. By the way, Newsweek, they met with multiple attorneys, multiple lawyers, including constitutional scholars, to confirm this. Law professor Kimberly Well told Newsweek, if there is an acceptance of a pardon and the recipient is called to testify, it is accurate that they cannot successfully invoke the Fifth Amendment on matters covered by the pardon because there would be no threat of incrimination. If they refuse to testify, they could be held in contempt. By the way, this is also being picked up by multiple news outlets, including CNN. Yes, I know I called them news. But the pardons also won't protect those who receive them from congressional investigation. So yes, Liz Cheney, Dr. Fauci, the rest of them, they could be investigated by Congress or other types of investigation, such as tax inquiry. If those were to arise, the pardons would only protect them from federal criminal charges. So not good news for all of them. And all of this leads to the question of the day. Who do you think is going to accept their pardon from Joe Biden? Because don't forget, number one, you have to accept the pardon in order for it to be valid. And number two, if you do accept it, you lose your Fifth Amendment rights. And any one of them, the J6 committee, General Milley, Dr. Fauci, they could be subpoenaed. They could be called to testify. And if they do that and they don't have their Fifth Amendment right, they could perjure themselves on the spot, thereby committing a crime. They could say something that reveals another crime. It is very risky. It's not as simple as it seems, especially with this group that we're talking about. Personally, I think Hunter Biden for sure is going to take the pardon, but I'm really interested to see what Adam Kinzinger does because, he is on the record. He was so adamant that he didn't want it. Well, Adam, now's the time to put your money where your mouth is. Now's the time to show us what you're worth. Show us your medal. Or are you a hypocrite? Time will tell. Time will tell, bud. And look, to be very clear, none of this is a rant. None of this is a dig against presidential pardon powers because they exist for a reason. Look, our founding fathers, the Constitution, they're brilliant because they understood the nature of mankind. They understood the danger in the thirst and hunger for power. And that's why we have the system of government that we have. That's why we have checks and balances to try to constrain and contain that fire, to protect us all from it. So the presidential pardon power, it's sort of a check, if you will, on the judicial system. Yes, our judicial system is supposed to enact justice, but sometimes, we all know this, injustice happens. And that's why the president has power. An innocent person. How many stories have we heard? Horror stories, really, of innocent people being executed or innocent people on death row. The president, the system sometimes doesn't take care of it fast enough. Sometimes they can't. Sometimes their hands are tied. Maybe the person doesn't have the resources. The president can single-handedly swoop in, save that person. But the brilliance here is that the presidential pardon power isn't just for people who are actually innocent. It can be for a wide range of issues. Someone can commit a crime, but still do something that is morally and ethically okay. Think about that for a second. There are many reasons. What I'm trying to say is that the presidential pardon power isn't for nefarious reasons. It exists for a reason. And just for proof that I'm not against it. So Trump pardoned all the J6ers. Great. That's a start. But I think he needs to do more. So under Joe Biden, many pro-lifers were arrested. Not only were they arrested, but they are in federal prison for simply singing outside an abortion clinic. So take a look at this footage from Nashville. So this is in Nashville, Tennessee, and these pro-lifers are legit, as you can see here, just singing outside an abortion clinic. They are in the hallway. They're not in the office. They're not storming the building in the operation room. 6 of them in federal prison now because of Joe Biden's Justice Department. So I hope that President Trump comes in and pardons them. He's pardoned a lot of people so far. Great start, but there are many more. Just because the justice system did it, just because the Department of Justice did it, doesn't mean that it's just. Okay, last but not least, tomorrow I will be revealing my pets' names, my sleepy but not so sleepy dog, as well as my tricky lucky cat. And we did have a guessing game contest, and part of that video, part of the reveal, will be the raffle. So everyone you are seeing on your screen now, and there is another slide, by the way, this is everyone who guessed just the dog correctly. So this is slide number 1 for just the dog, and this is slide number 2 for just the dog. If you see emailed by your name, that's because you emailed me. Everyone else, I just saw your comments here on the channel. On your screen right now is everyone who just guessed the cat's name correctly. Again, this is just the cat. Everyone you're seeing right now, slide number 2 for just the cat. At first, the people guessing the dog's name were outnumbering the cat. But more people guessed the cat's name than the dog's name. However, there are some of you who correctly guessed both of their names. So everyone you are seeing on your screen right now guessed both of their names. Slide number 1, slide number 2, slide number 3. Again, I will be giving out 5 $50 Amazon gift cards. So if you guessed their names correctly, you will be in the raffle. If you guessed one name correctly, that's 1 entry. So if you guessed the cat or the dog, 1 entry. And then if you guessed both their names, that is 2 entries. Many people guessed both of them. Last slide for both of them. So I just wanted to acknowledge all of you. Great job. There were a ton of guesses and a ton of good guesses. And if I ever adopt another furry friend, I now have a ton of options and ideas. So thank you all so much. If you haven't already, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. I know it's a simple thing to ask for, but it really does help me in the algorithm to reach more viewers like you. Be sure to smash that subscribe button and to check out one of these videos.